I'm in my bag, Lord. I got the favor, baby. I ain't gotta brag.
Hello, people out there that are trying to serve the Lord. I'm telling you, the enemy, he might put something in your way, but God is going to make it okay. He's got a better day for you. Just trust him to make a way. This is awesome. You don't listen to that little beat behind me. I'm trying to, think about God, and he gave me a melody, so I have to say it, you see. Now listen to this. This is my prayer for everybody who's suffering out there, who's wandering, and all of those things out there. Take your energy back. Take your spirit, your will, and all of that back. Right now, in the name of Jesus Christ. So here is what you should say to relieve yourself. Now, not everyone should say this if they don't feel this way, but start to say these things. I'm going to send God to cover me and to help me learn what I should and never knew. I leave it in his hands. And where the enemy meant to destroy part of God in me, I rebuke and I reject and undo. I decree and declare God has healed and delivered me, and my entire spirit and being is made brand new. You can do it too if you choose to, in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. I pray, amen. And I think you should say this even if you have enemies, or you think somebody has kind of played you close, or they tried to take some of your energy away and watch you melt. God did not mean that for you. Just realize that everything is a moment to live in. And those moments can last long when we don't understand what's happening. But make a decision to learn and know, and be present in that moment as well. And sometimes I'm telling you, it's really hard to shake, but this is one thing that will help you win. Realize that your life does not belong to anyone else. And if God gave you the life that you have, no matter what you have in your pocket, that you are worth waking up tomorrow and being okay. You are worth to say to yourself and to be, your disposition, your status, to be whole and brand new, even in any type of condition you're trying to obtain in life. This is not what you are. It is what you do. No, realize that God has a covering for you. He has a good place for you to be in life. Sometimes you will be under authorities that are not so nice, and they mean to be mean spirited. What you have to understand is that's not your burden to carry. It's not your problem to fix. It's them that have to work out their own soul salvation, and you that has to declare and reclaim all of the things they tried to break in you that they weren't supposed to break. It's not that you aren't supposed to have an experience when challenges come and learn, and you don't feel and think about some things. But the problem is, or the reason for those situations are, I believe, is that we're supposed to try to get a better understanding of who God is and what his purpose is in our life. And then also look around you. There are so many people who have millions of dollars, and they have gone into the ground back to where they came from as dust, without even one of those dollar bills in their hands. They have people left behind them still fighting over things that they left, lying, not telling the truth, not distributing things as they said, even after they're gone. Um, they're just That's just how it is in life. So we are fooled because we have to work so hard for the things that we get on this planet, that we feel we make it our God, because we put so much time, invest so much time in doing those things. We feel like that's what really sustains us. In the flesh realm, we are supposed to work as if we're working unto the Lord, and what we do earn does determine some aspect of our lives, and that's okay. That's how it's meant to be. But we are not defined by those things, and especially not in the spiritual realm. We are not defined by those things, and God doesn't put one person in a higher place in heaven than he does people that are on the earth, For instance, we have different types of classes, different categories we put people in, hierarchy of things, ranks, and all of these sorts of, measuring devices and tools we have out here to say that there's a standard or there's a level where someone should come up to, and if they aren't, then they are less than something. We are adding and subtracting all the time. But God is into multiplying and dividing. How do I mean dividing? He's not a person that divides ruthlessly, a person that divides maliciously. But when you start to love the things of God, you're separating yourself in some way because it's not what the world is accustomed to or made to esteem in some degree, to some degree. Now, case in point, if you go to a church, you can go to a church a million times. You have people in the church that still haven't been delivered from their worldly ways. They still do things they used to do. They're mean spirited in high school as they were a child, or something negative they do to make them feel like they're getting their vengeance or they're getting their point across. And you find those type of people everywhere. That's another subject. Going to church is not the home base of church. It's not like you playing baseball. When you get to home base, then you're safe. No, you're not safe. When you go to church, it's an opportunity for you to submit your will, your understanding, your thoughts, and your feelings, all of that. Submit yourself to God and the Holy Spirit and allow Him to work through his vessels to feed you and to join with other people in strengthening the worship processes and also hearing the word of God so that you can be nourished in spiritually, and that you will be able to, have the fuel that you need as far as spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ. But some people, they really smug. They put on their Sunday's best and they go to church, and when they get out, they feel like, oh, did you go to church today? And they say that, but they don't have nothing in them intends to change. They just think they have hit home base because they went to church. So just because you go to church does not make you a good person, but it's a big indicator that if you do subscribe to church, you go to church, you are really trying to be a decent person, and you're probably going to be a person that should be, or this is what people think about you. So don't deceive them is what you should not do. If you're going to church, don't deceive people. Being fair, righteous. You don't have to co-sign for everything. Every time something makes the world laugh, you have to laugh at it too, just so you won't feel singled out. Well, if it's not about God, then you need to be all right with being singled out sometimes. But many people in the church try to, instead of holding up a standard and bringing the world closer to God, they make um, a show to show the world that they don't have to lose all of the fun, sinful things that they do in the world just to be with God. You can do whatever you want to do, just call on God and go to church. And that's not what God says, but that's what many people do. Um, and if you don't go to church, that means that you don't believe in God, and that He's not going to. No, that doesn't mean that either. Because people know God. People say they come out of the womb having a connection to Him. We call it deja vu. We call it karma. We call it, emotions and feelings that make you have epiphanies and all of these sort of things. No, that is either the enemy's spiritual realm that you're subscribing to, that's taking you to a higher place, or you at a crossroads where you know that you should choose God, but you choose to do something that's serving you instead of serving Christ. So I had to say that to a couple of people today because it really is it's really something that you have to say. You have to manifest, and you have to declare that you take back what someone tried to take from you as far as spiritually, and then when it's not supposed to be taken from you. There's a passage in the scripture that talks about giving a person whatever they ask, people whatever they ask, and also there's a passage in the scripture that talks about. First, I'm going to talk about that, giving people whatever they ask. That was pointed to a rich person in the scripture that was able to do that to people, but he wasn't saying every time someone asks you for something and you know they're lying, or you know they're doing something wrong and you want to help them do it. But if they're coming to you in good faith and they're trying to make changes and they're telling the truth and they're just trying to make changes, that's a different story. Even if you have friends that have businesses and you know they're sneaky and underhanded and it's just a matter of time before their business folds, but you're always, want the show. So they can stand up there looking like they have millions, but they already took some PPP loans that they shouldn't take, then you're not helping your friend. So, and the bad part about it is we need that we don't have enough communities or societies to really dig in and see people for who they are and actually find tools to help them from a righteous point of view. It's like you have to fake it until you make it really hard. You have to go hard on that because people sometimes get enjoyment out of seeing people struggling. And even though the scripture says the poor will always be with you, doesn't mean that some people always have to be poor, but it's just an indicator that it's always going to be somebody that has more or less than you. I don't care, even if you're a homeless person, some homeless people have shoes and some don't. Some have carts with materials and goods in them, and nobody ever touched them. And some, every time they put their hand on something new, somebody takes it from them. So it doesn't matter to what degree that you obtain these things. Everybody knows where their challenge lies when they find out there is a challenge to be met. And it sometimes it really is a real enemy attack. And you have to say, he works through people if they subscribe to it, or they want to actually they're jealous of you, or they have this imagined version of you that makes you jealous of them when you really don't care about the things that they're telling you you're jealous of. That's the enemy. That is the enemy. Many people do sly things, and they are quick to say the person that is opposed to the things that they do insecure or jealous. No, you're not. I was watching this show the other day, and this lady was out with a man. She had traveled thousands of miles. She went out on a date with the guy finally. She was a little kind of misunderstanding and because okay, let me start over. So I'm watching the 90 days day I think it was 90 Day Fiance show. I was watching the show, and it's the show about when people travel across the world to meet someone because they believe they've fallen in love with them online, or something similar to that. Mostly online because they're doing video chats and they chat and they talk on the phone. So this one woman in particular, she never saw the guy on a video before she traveled across the world to see him. So she just had really high hopes of who he is, who he say he is, and she saw pictures, and her friends found pictures, and they were trying to deter her like he's a star, he's the bad kind of star, or whatever. But she went anyway. So the world doesn't stop when people meet each other. Their jobs don't stop, and they cannot always stop and do everything they want to. So if you travel across the world and know that he might be at work, then he might not have allotted time to take you to his apartment and let you just be there while he's at work. So he took her to work with him immediately off the plane. And I would feel some type of terrible about that too, because you want to take a shower and, you know, put on some fresh clothes before you go out and sit around after you've been on the plane for hours. You want to go and freshen up. So I understand that. But he was at work and nobody didn't really care at your job what time you want to meet up with someone. They just want their job to be done. So he tried to include her by putting her up in the front seat, and she was just really feeling terrible about it. She sent him a text message, but he was right in the middle of doing his job, so he couldn't get up and go into the audience and oblige her, console her because of her text message. So she was angry about that. And she fussed about it, but I think she didn't think about it. She probably had jet lag, or she was just thinking, I did XYZ, so now it's time for you to make sure I'm okay, and left out the whole element that he has a manager and a job and he can't lose his job just because he's trying to meet someone, because she's still going to be there for the next day. And I felt that she just didn't get it on that one, and it was almost a slap in the face, because he probably could have said, here, take a taxi to my apartment and then I'll chat later. But sometimes people don't think of everything they had to do. So I'm glad she stuck around. But anyway, when she got over there and she had those complaints, they were valid to some degree. Um, and they were valid to some degree. And he went out on a date with her finally so he could preserve the last days of their visit, because they spent most of them with him being questioned about the rude behaviors that he was imposing on her. So when he sat at the table, he just had his eyes glued on this lady's behind, the waitress's behind. And that's just rude. That doesn't mean you're insecure. I'll say this, if you're out somewhere with the person that you're with and what you're doing, it does not include the person that you're with, then it means that there could be some questionable behavior. Plain and simple. Why take someone with you if you intend to spend the time alone doing what you enjoy? So that's the whole thing that people don't think about. Oh, she's insecure. No, she's not. If you're calling her insecure, it may be something that you're comparing to this person that you don't think is as good as this person. So what you need to do is stop playing with her and let her go, because it's not good to settle. Go and get what you want. If you can't get what you want, discipline yourself to see what you're supposed to see in the gift that you've been given. That's what I can say. Okay, so case in point, we're going to talk about money, divvying up money. Here's the thing. I don't think that women are after money. I don't think that men are after money. I think it's a lot of hurt and scared people. And as much as we brag and we boast out here, we don't really trust each other. And we know that people can be very vindictive. And most of the time, we're thinking in the back of our mind how to keep ourselves safe should this person act up and leave us without. So it's really a lot of hurt and scared people. That's what I said, and that's what I believe, because it is no reason for some of the bouts that people have about money issues. Once you determine who's going to handle whatever responsibility in the household, I think there should be a fight. If they're supposed to trust you, and when they don't, they're insecure. Then what is it when you don't trust them in any type of way? This doesn't only have to be about men or women. This has to be about handling your entire household if you're together. So if you're in a relationship where you're always going to be competitive, look at competition and the definition of competition. This is not something that you impose on so-called team. This is not what you do on a team. Now, if you're doing something to, outgive one another and stuff, that's cute. But at the same time, when you get in front of others, you shame somebody about how much they did and they did not give you and all of that sort of stuff. you don't really appreciate the person if you know that they're trying their very best and they're being honest with you and submitted themselves to you, and you squander. It's something inside of you that is broken, and it's not that person that did it initially. Some people hurt themselves trying because they get rejected for it, by somebody who intends to have them as a whipping boy, for so to speak. That's the only way they feel good, if they have a mainstay whipping boy. Every time somebody does something to them that they don't feel they can counteract, especially if it entails them getting fired, then they're going to find a vice so they can have an outlet and project all of their energy on, so they can get a rise out of that person in by any means necessary, because and it energizes them to go the next day and do what they do in a positive way, because they feel like they have just as much power as somebody tried to take from them. So people should be aware of these types of things, because it just really is happening. It's so many people that are hurt. They're manufacturing happiness. They never define what happiness actually is to the letter. They never get facts and proof about what it is. They're manufacturing happiness, but they're feeling empty inside. It's like, I'm just a thing that compare myself to another thing. If you feel like something, then you're off kilter, because even the world acknowledged in our English literature that a noun is a person, a place, or a thing. A person is not a thing. Person, place, or thing. A person is not a thing. So if you feel like you're just something, you're just existing, and you always have to measure yourself by someone else, and you're building a whole bunch of things because you feel like you can really go to the third degree of faking it till you make it, meaning that you start to believe and fool yourself, and you let these things infect your soul and your spirit, and you really are always quenching the power and the purpose inside of you, trying to be someone else. Yeah. Okay. Next point. The whole gist of this is, just as we come and we have outcries about anything that we talk about that is worth talking about, and communication is worth talking about. Just think about it. Even today, if you had people from all nations working on a building and nobody understood each other's language, you could not get that building built. This is not a fable. People say in the scriptures are fables, but remember the Tower of Babel? The people that were building the construction workers that were building this building, the tower they were going to build high enough so they could shoot an arrow into the sky at God. They were not able to build it because they had a communication issue. They were all confounded by each other's language. They could not communicate and make the building. So talk does matter. Sometimes people try to push you in the corner. Well, you're supposed to be doing something. Well, when I talk and you've been blessed by it, or you secretly go out and use something I said and you turn around, or you take a spin on it, or you try to regurgitate it in my face as if I never said it and I probably forgot it, because why? Because you think I'm not making many dollars. You don't mean that my talk doesn't matter. It means that you weren't honest enough to pay me for it and to cultivate and say, hey, sister, you have a gift. You said this and you did this. And now I understand because of you. Let me sew back into where I got the knowledge from. People don't like to do that. They say talk is cheap, but that's the only way. Look at every aspect of business you have to go to. You go to, how do you get there? If you want to raise, you have to ask. If you're not asking, you got to write down the words. It has to be legible. They need to understand it. Your communication has to be convincing. It has to be compelling. It has to be persuasive. You have to be able to quote what you said when you're asked on the dime without looking at this paper or this email that you said. negotiations, lawyers, advocates. You have to go into a bank and have a conversation with a lawyer when you're at signing to close on your home, to close on any type of account where it's concerning obtaining any type of real estate. You have to have a conversation. There are physical buildings out here because people go to these buildings and they have conversations. When you work with somebody, you have to talk to your team. You have to get management to talk with each other. You have to make sure that you have communicated with them effectively enough that all teams work together as a system. So don't quench your voice, but use it for the good. And don't be afraid to say that, you tried it. You tried to take my power. You tried to make me feel less than you because you wanted me to be in a place where you can come back and get some more of my energy because you're too cowardly to um you're too cowardly to admonish somebody else for their gift because it really does mean something, but you don't want to be singled out as a person that vouches for it, that it does matter. You can't say that because it's not popular vote. Sometimes it only takes one person to make a difference. The inventors were isolated people to some degree, not isolated people, but they believed in themselves. They kept trying. They made mistakes and they made inventions, and people came along and modernized those inventions as technologies and ages advanced. One person, each one of the celebrities that you know, each one of the celebrities, they have a net worth individually. All of their networks are not tied together. But they had to communicate with someone and they have to talk in interviews and stay current and promote themselves and go to speaking engagements and give to charities and speak at charity events and all of this. So speak to your problem and take your power back from the things that are trying to take the power from you. But also be realistic in the situation, not to say, oh, well, one and two, one plus one makes equals two all the time. Let's multiply it. Two plus two equal two times two equals four. No, two plus two equals four. Two times two equals four. Put the division where it's supposed to be. I mean, the multiplication where it's supposed to be, and the addition where it's supposed to be, and everything works together when it's in its right placement. Okay, let me get back to all of these analogies. I'm going to get back to the original thing. If you want to do things by yourself, then just be by yourself. If you want something to toy with, buy a toy. Or at least make yourself so transparent. If people want to be transparent, make yourself so transparent that there is no question that whomever you're communicating with knows exactly what they're getting when they get with you. If you leave out any of that, whatever happens after that is your fault because you're the liar. You're the liar in it, the outlier. So if somebody gets the bad end of the stick, but they told the truth the entire time, and you was a liar because you was building a facade and you really want something that you couldn't communicate, and you build a communication, so to speak, because you pulled some from the scripture when it was selectively, when it was beneficial for you. You pulled something from the world, you mixed up a concoction, and you just spurred out some lies and dissension and tried to cause dissension between this person and their spirit carelessly, recklessly, just because you could do it. Everything you can do, and because you're grown this or you're grown that, doesn't mean that you should do. It doesn't make you pristine. If you look again, let's look at the moneymakers. If you look at some of the celebrities, some of them have fallen from money grace, but they're people. So everybody has some type of imperfections, but they weren't too far, too unreachable for the standards of laws and legalities, that they wound up in some facilities for those reasons, because they were not untouchable. So money really don't make you. If honest money takes you where you're supposed to go, honest money sometimes is not always the millions and billions, but it's better to have what you need and build, instead of stealing what you want and failing, or even at the end of your days take that secret to your grave, that you actually stood on the shoulders of people, and you plagiarized some things, and you lied about some things. You made people think that they were doing some or meeting some goal that you was not going to meet, and that you intended to entrap them, and that you needed to entrap them so that you could feel better about yourself. And you played God because you took vengeance in your own hands, and those types of things. Just think about, we have to see all of that play before our eyes when we're leaving this earth. I don't want to see any of that come back bad for me. And I would think many people don't want to see that too. So thank God for the people that have time to speak things that give us a steering back to the Lord and back to his ways and his standards, not the type, not the aspect of his word and his gospel that has been tainted or misused, but the aspects that bring purity and soundness back to people who want to be with God. There are a lot of hurt and broken people out here, and they are afraid, and they project all of that on money. So I have this much money and I gave this much money. That's why this person should do XYZ. Not say, I had this much money and I'm going to make puppeteer this person because I want to see them squirm. And, you know, and they could have done better when they were with me, but I decided to take advantage of their submission to me instead of cultivate them in some way. And that was my responsibility in that season to do. And at the same time, they call that dirty money good. So it really is not, money is as good as you make it. If you're using it for evil, then you're just an evil person with loads of money. There's been good kings and bad kings, good queens, bad queens, and they're not the same. And sometimes I get concerned for people in general, um, especially where there's a lack of communication, invasive communication. People are being selfish and on purpose. If your budget makes sense to take care of your responsibilities that you have in your household, husbands and wives, then do so. If you are not the 50-50 person, don't pretend you are the 50-50 person in the beginning and feel like they're going to change and be all right with that because you're going to do something to persuade them. This is a lifetime commitment. You can't commit that long to fake it. You're going to impose some hardships, and one of you are going to intend for it to happen. It's no other way. There is no other way. So sometimes people try to coddle situations and overcompensate. For instance, you get with somebody because they say you're better than the last person I've been with. You know, I always told you was better. I told you was better, but you're slave driving, and they're stealing your money, and they squander your money, and they don't care how much you have in your bank account. They take everybody out shopping and drinking, and they make you feel bad if you can't take everybody, all of their friends out shopping, and buy something on a drop of a dime. They call you less of a person. No, this is not okay. This is not okay. That's abusive. But if you're the breadwinner in the household and that's where you want to be, if you use your vices for evil, then you are a psychopath. And you should not ever want to lead anybody because you don't have the aptitude to do that in good spirits. It's just you need some people to walk on so you can feel important. But some people have been turned over to a reprobate mind and they don't feel bad about these things anymore and they call it good. And that's why they call it good. Okay, so what I was saying is just as all of those things can be said, and I know many people have had these experiences, maybe not all together to the same extent, but we have all been impacted by things that make us second guess what we should do towards people and what we should not do. And it's sometimes a hard pill to swallow because you really have to consult God so He can make your heart pliable to do some things because we won't ever know everything. We don't ever know everything. And trying to know everything in somebody's life is only going to burn you out because the only one who will ever know everything about a person is God. That is just the way it is. You will get burned out trying to know everything about a person. I don't care how much you can set up a recorder, set up a camera. You can put a recording, make a recording. You can do anything you want to sneak and listen to something and discuss it with other people and conspire. And all of you just look like dummies because you still don't know everything. All you know is the part of it that you selected so you can build your case and do some things that you probably shouldn't be doing. And you don't think that you're going to get back because it's to some degree you probably become a reprobate and you think everything you do is good because as long as you can eat and you can count those dollars and you don't have to be bothered with anybody because you have made a way so you don't have to be bothered with anybody, you really start to think that you are good and not and untouchable and that people are beneath you. There are already hierarchies made. There are already levels and capacities and standards that we have to reach. It doesn't need any more defining than that. To tell you the truth, it does not. So, with all of the things that we can say in any genre or any situation or circumstance or speech, anything that we could say, we have to start saying, I take my energy back. I take my energy back. I take my life back from you. I take my purpose back from you. I take all of the things that you tried to take away from me back. They were never yours to begin with. That you know I have to manifest that I was never one person's trash and now I'm somebody else's treasure. I'm always God's treasure. God didn't make me trash, so I'm not going to say that I am just to please you. And people need to start saying that because they sling these words around casually. They actually do call themselves trash. I've heard everybody from every tax bracket say this. One man's trash is another man's treasure, but in reality, some people intend to try to make you feel like trash, but they're actually the ones that are acting like trash because they don't have enough gumption internally to build up who they are, cultivate, and also do this from an honest and a pure way. They have to build up all types of vices that cause people to divide themselves and choose sides for no reason at all, just because of some issue that they don't like or they don't understand or they can't see everything, every detail, jot tittle of it. They feel like they need to manufacture something so they can be all right with it when we just really at some point have to give it all to God. I have been married to a person that is just a narcissist and whether they know it or not, that's just what the behavior is. And even though I was going through things with the person, I would say to myself, I have to make a decision. Am I going to keep praising and glorifying this person by being sorrowful and sorrowful every time they're doing something, or trying to coddle them back to health because I think, oh, they're so bad, there's something that's going to happen to them, and I want to save them because that's what I'm supposed to save them. And in actuality, they make the farce so they can go through these things, and you can feel like that about them when their ultimate plan is basically to build themselves up because they are jealous of you. They are jealous of you. They want to compete with you, and you're not even in competition with them. So this is a really actual um, realization. It's an actualization that people can actually, if you um, how can I say, reminisce or look back at some points in your life where you had this antagonist in your life, there isn't a reason for people to compete unless they're enemies. How can two walk together when they have this divisive mentality? One thinks completely has a different standard and foundation. They never really come onto the same page. At some point, it's always friction that really internally imposes something to them where they cannot explain, but it's just there. So I just implore you. I've had a person that tried to make me their muse, and then also try to make me the person that made them pretend that I was the person that they wanted me so badly that they got sick because they couldn't have me like they want me. When in actuality, they had been sick several times before I came along and even gave me a praise report when I came along. And on top of that, um, they had told some lies that I was not lies about foundational aspects in the relationship that I knew I was going to never be on the side of that, and it could not be. So you made the brokenness and try to blame it on me, and try to shield people from talking to you because your job made you. They praise your job, the way you look and handle things on your job. They act like that's just across the board. It's not. Children can be good at home and they go to school. People can be good in general, and the parents love them. Your parents always love you, but you can go out into the world and everybody has enemies and everybody has friends. They have people they don't like themselves, and they have friends, and mommy and daddy think you're their pretty little cute sweet baby always, and you still have these things that challenge you in life. So that's for every person. When people have some understanding tolerance for that part, and really really discipline themselves to understand that part, I think they'll be kinder to a person, other people, and more forgiving to some extent. It doesn't mean that you pet everything like a pet a roaring lion like it's a little kitten that's not angry because those claws come out on those kitties. But you don't do that. But it's just a whole bunch of madness. I was talking last night for a long time about relationship things. People, just the in and outs of relationships. They're trying to make their statement in the beginning, but then put a lot of sweet talk on top of it so you can just fall into it. And they really mean to convict you once you get into relation, belittle you, glorate you, and control you by saying mean spirited things so you can fall back into line, even when you don't agree with what their foundation is. So it's better to be alone and be peaceful, or enter a relationship telling the whole truth so that you can do the checks and balances for yourself and walk away when it's time, instead of trying to uphold somebody's foolishness just because they playing mind games to try to make you subscribe to something that you know is against your foundation. So for instance, anybody can do whatever they want to, but you can find people who like to do what you want to. If you want to date a man or a woman, um, Men who date women, they can decide whether they want a woman that goes to clubs or drinks or smokes and all that, and so can women. And it doesn't mean that when they say, oh no, I don't date anyone who drinks or smoke. I believe people get really offended when you say that because they really have this deep, honest like for you, and they want you to see the good in them. So they don't want you to see this as bad. When you see this as bad, then they feel like, oh, they think I'm just a bad person because they think that's bad about me. Look at all these million things that are good, but they have some foundational things that they won't accept as well. So you don't have to settle. You don't have to settle. I have I prefer to date someone who's healthy, financially stable, mentally stable, generous, and all of those sorts of things. And who wants to be a provider and caretaker for the household. And people try to pretend this is in the past days. No, it's not. Women still exist, and you want the same thing you wanted from them, the other men wanted from them thousands of years ago. And if it's in the word, this is how it is for the ages. And he never changed that the man is supposed to be the provider for his household. And the issue with that is when men hear that, they get fearful because they know that it's some women that will take advantage of them. And they just envision a woman who believes they're a provider sitting on their butt all day and complaining and making honeydew lists and nagging them when it's not like that. It's you can design this. You can be together and you can be the sole provider, and you can have a wife that probably is working from home, a professional job, probably sometimes earning more than you. But you all can save a nest egg. It's just not a requirement that she has to uphold the house and provide for the house. But men are very afraid of that because they feel like they're going to get taken advantage of. They feel like the woman is going to be nagging. Every time he looks at her face, she's going to be scowling. Every time she has a hoop out for him to jump, he's got to jump through it to make himself look good in front of her girls. And, just being messy. The women's wild stuff is from the devil. That's what I'm saying. If you try to control somebody with any one thing that you got that is not godly approved, you are acting as Jezebel or the devil. And Jezebel's spirit can be in a man too. But, trying to control him and say, bring all your money and give it to me. And then you go and squander it and say, call him, you're not a man because you don't make enough. If I want to spend this, I should be able to spend it. And he only has one job and a certain budget that you all should be. And you spend the whole paycheck and tell him he's not a man because he can't find a hustle to make more money. And then you want him to spend time with you, but he got to spend all the time out here working extra time because of you. You are a witch. That is witch behavior. It's not woman behavior. It's not cute. It's not woman. It's not womanly. I don't subscribe to any of that. I believe that it's good for a man to want to be and to be the provider of the household and to pay the foundational bills that support the household. But if the woman wants to work, she shouldn't be made to compete with him in his work arena in order to, do the same things. But she has to do man capacity labor. But at the same time, you want her to be feminine and smooth and soft. She got to fight the same battles that you have to fight at work. It's not in a covering for her. You just there. There's a difference when the woman chooses to work, and then when she does work, she's very soft and she knows she made this decision. And then when she's able to have money, she can surprise her husband and things like that. That's what it should be to me. But um, if you cannot afford it, don't pretend you can afford it. And if you don't want somebody to change you in a way, then don't try to change them in a way, because when you try to change them and they don't see the worth in changing it for themselves, you're going to have a relationship that's hell on wheels in at least one way. And it's going to be a way that you never want to see, but it usually comes up. So if you told the truth and the person lied to you and they reared their head and to do some malicious things to you and you've been saddened about it, don't be fooled that it's the enemy all the time. Look at some of the people that were in the scriptures. Job, he was thrown into the wells because he didn't listen to God, not because he didn't do what he was supposed to with another person. Guy was on the road to Damascus. He was blinded by light and he turned from his wicked ways. Joseph, he was envied by his brothers, and they put him in a dungeon and tried to enslave him and put him in slavery and all. They sold him to slavery, and he turned out to have all that they needed at the time, and he could have thrown them into prison, but he didn't. So the challenges don't mean it's negative, and it doesn't mean it's the devil. It's just that we have been so brainwashed into thinking that our jobs are everything, because nobody wants to fail and not have anything, because it's really difficult to find help. And sometimes your emergencies don't match up with people's schedule, and they're not going to try to make room for you. And we all know that. So, as people, we do have to realize that we're living in fear. We're living in fear, and fear of failure. And fear is not a spirit of God, but the world has us in fear. Doing all of the seven sins, gluttony, being boastful. I don't know if boastful is, but gluttony and greed and selfishness and pride. That's all everything is. Well, look at this one. They're up there, and look at that one. They're down there. Ha ha ha. He he he. Somebody falls from grace, and got to talk about them for ages. You know, all types of things. The system is not changing. If you look in the scriptures, all of the dynamics of meanness and all the dynamics of happiness and goodness that exist today, they existed in the scriptures. It's a different system or a modified system, but the same stuff, same type of circumstances. So just say, just say, no, I take it back. I'm going to really truly walk on water with the Lord and see what He has for me. Not because if you're receiving money from a terrible source, a wrong source, or something like that, let it go and let God. Don't be so fearful that you hold up to a person. For instance, if you're holding on to money from a person that's embezzling or doing some type of extortion or using people and treating people unfairly, discriminating, treating them hatefully at work, going across against the labor laws and the rules of OSHA or whatever, and this is how they earn their money, by doing these things. When they get caught up, they're going to finger you too. They're going to finger you too, and you might be an accessory. So letting go of those things don't always mean that you lose something. You gain so much more spiritually. You gain so much more spiritually, and you just believe that God is going to make a way. You, you really do. And He'll just keep making those steps that mend things together. And sometimes I was living somewhere. People listen to you say these things by God, and they feel like they need to manufacture those steps and those challenges for you so they can show you that God ain't doing nothing. You got to do everything. Don't you believe the hype? Don't you believe the hype? They have to answer for all the foolish things they did, just like you do. So once they start building some traps for you, just understand those traps is going to be right there waiting for them, whether they get it here and while they're living, or the afterlife is coming for them. So don't define yourself by that. Some people just they're really uncomfortable about believing in things spiritually, but their emotions take them from 0 to 100. You can't touch an emotion. You can make yourself act out from an emotion, but if neither one of your body parts express that you're angry or having a negative feeling, no one would be the wiser. It is intangible. So why is God so unbelievable? He cannot be seen, just like anger, hurt, sadness, happiness, joy. None of that can be seen if you do not make an outward expression in your physical body. That's why some people can't be read because they're not giving anything to read. It's like, what is it? God exists too. And I believe in him. So if you believe in what you believe and it's not God, that's your choice. And I'm not going to um, say mean spirited things about it, but I know what I know is the truth. And I have a right to express my opinion about what I think about it, but not I don't have to try to persuade anyone. The word does what it's supposed to do. It reaches in places that we can't reach. It fixes things that we can't fix. It climbs the highest heights and the deepest depths that we'll never ever imagine that we could see. And those are the mysteries of life and spirituality that people want to know. And the reason why they keep kicking themselves in the butts and chasing their tails because um, they can't make themselves unreadable spiritually because they feel like they're tricking themselves to believe in something imaginary. All the while, they have this fight going on inside. He's real, but not today, but he's real. And it's just a matter of choice. So the whole thing is just to say, I'm taking back my power. It's a whole lot of things that you could say from yesterday and today that people used to say it was crazy then and it's not crazy now, but it still is crazy. It still means the same thing, but they soften the blow because everybody can laugh at it now. It still means the same thing. And God is always the same. He is always the same. And you have to take your power back. So you had to speak to your situation in the past. You have to speak to it now. You had to tell yourself. People encourage you. Look in the mirror and tell yourself, but not you're looking at a mirror. This is holding an image of you that really is a reflection of you. It's not really you. And you're talking to yourself. And you're telling yourself these things. But if someone talks to themselves and they don't have money, then they're crazy. Because why? Because everybody can see them. They're not in their own home. And this must have been what's got them there. But you're at home and you're the biggest multi-millionaire on your mogul or whatever. I talk to myself in the mirror. I told myself these, and tell yourself these things every day, and this is how you get there. So people have a lot of BS for you to get wrapped up in, but just climb up out of that and realize that you have to do your due diligence yourself in every aspect of life to tell you the truth. Work out your own soul salvation. And if God speaks to you and He tell you, no, just say, I'm taking back my energy from that. You tried to be mean to me for no reason except for you don't understand something about me. Now, some people they know that this is occurring, and they'll take this and twist it. If you see someone who knows that they know something different is happening, but they take something and make a technicality out of it instead of looking at the reality of things, they are a sociopath. I'm telling you, they're a narcissist and they're a sociopath because they love technicalities. They don't like to deal with facts. And they call the technicalities truth when it's just manufactured BS instead of actually getting to the root, the source of of whatever it is that is being experienced. So I say I take I take all of the goodness of God that anyone, ever, anything tried to ever break inside of me, and I claim it back. I declare and I decree and I declare that I am totally healed and delivered from any farce, any entrapment, any ill will, any evil eyes, any conspiracies that anybody and every evil thing that anybody ever tried to do towards me to take away the God in me, because it is not theirs to take. And I reject and I rebuke it and I leave it behind. I'm letting go and I'm letting God. And I like where God is taking me. Every time I take a little leap of faith, He always meets me with something more than I thought I was going to have. And I'm going to trust Him. So if marriages weren't really a thing or weren't important, why do carnal institutions design some types of um, what can I say? Types of recovery systems so families who lack from their team can recover to some degree. For instance, a divorced wife can get alimony and just one moment. Who is this?